Well, good morning, and thank you for taking some time to join us today. My name is John Terry with VisionAdvisors, and I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to join us for what I know is going to be an interesting and exciting opportunity to learn something new in your practice. You know, when we think about charitable planning, it's a unique and different way to work with their clients and allow them to serve a need greater than themselves, while at the same time receiving some unique tax benefits from that. One of the things many people that I have conversations with about charitable planning, they think it's only for the uber wealthy, the people that have millions and millions of dollars that they can give away to a charity, and that's just not the case. So I'm very excited today to be able to bring to you, as our trusted advisors, an introduction to Legacy Tree Foundation. And I'm not going to steal their thunder and begin to tell you what they bring to the table, but I am very excited because as we're going into tax season this year, and you've got an opportunity to have conversation with your clients, this is a unique conversation that you can have that I promise you nobody else is having with them. And one of the things we spend a lot of time talking about here at VisionAdvisors is how you position yourself as an authority figure and as an expert in financial planning, trying to become much more proactive in the way you do your business, being much more holistic in the way you do your business, and allowing your clients to see why out of any and all the other available options they could choose from, they need to choose you and lean on your expertise. What you're going to learn today is going to add to that, and it's going to give you an opportunity to really scale your success by bringing something new, unique, and different to the marketplace that's going to serve your clients in a greater way. So without further ado, I want to turn it over to Jim Wolter and John Frazier with Legacy Tree Foundation, giving them an opportunity to share with you who they are, what they're about, and the benefit of you of working with Legacy Tree Foundation through VisionAdvisors. Guys, thanks for joining us, and looking forward to learning from y'all this morning.
Well, awesome, John. Thank you so much for having us today. Yeah, we've been looking forward to meeting with your group for quite a while here and sharing some of these ideas. Appreciate that introduction. You make a lot of points, or at least the main point that I like to make when I do a presentation like this is who the right clientele is, and it doesn't have to just be the high net worth, you know, the multimillionaire folks that can do this type of planning. So thanks a lot for having us. We appreciate it. But for the rest of you folks, I'm sure, of course, you can assume by our name, we're a charitable foundation, of course. So we're a 501c3, just like many charities that you are familiar with. And I'll provide a little more detail about what we do in a few minutes, but we're different than most charities in that we raise our funds mainly through financial professionals just like you, showing you how you can help your clientele take advantage of some simple charitable planning tools that are outlined in the IRS code. So needless to say, we would probably be a unique addition to your practice. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to discuss how we can help your clients take advantage of some of the benefits of charitable planning. But it is important to know that our charitable planning discussion today is not going to be about just the donating part or of the giving an asset to a charity and getting a tax deduction. It's also, and maybe even more, about the charitable planning type that creates an income and tax benefits for the client and their heirs. And so that's what makes this planning a little bit more unique. So I'll assume we're just a little bit familiar with some charitable planning ideas, but today we're going to simplify. We're just going to talk about basically just two types of plans that we have. And then we're going to talk about how and why charitable planning can be beneficial in your practice for your clients, which is what our goal is here today. First thing I want to do is give you a quick little disclaimer here about got to get this stuff behind us. But I mentioned that we're a 501c3, number 2 there. Number 4 is something I always point out is that we call our programs LegacyPlans, and what these are charitable plan giving transactions as outlined in the IRS code. So they're not investments. They shouldn't be presented as investments. All of this stuff is informational, educational. So you need to have legal, tax, financial, people involved, and maybe you're all of you are some of those. And we securities are available in most states, so that's not really an issue. But because these programs can be new to some of you, let me make sure we solidify 2 points. And John kind of touched on one of them, but number one is that charitable planning can definitely be part of your practice. So of course, we're going to show you why and how, and then also that you do have clients that can benefit from charitable planning. But one thing that I found out, and we communicate with hundreds, probably thousands of advisors around the country, and we hear different reasons why they have not gotten into charitable planning. So I always like to kind of touch on these to see if you fit in that category. But because as it turns out, usually these reasons that people have for not doing charitable planning are misconceptions, and they're not informed reasons. So before we jump in too far, let me just touch on these three things, because it might make you a little more comfortable about how this type of planning might work in your practice. And so I like to say, why not? Why aren't you doing charitable planning? And the first reason is that a lot of people say that I don't have many high net worth clients. And that's the point that we made earlier is, but the point and the reasoning should be is, do you have clients who could benefit by reducing their taxes? And so the real point here is that anybody who itemizes their taxes could be a prospect for you. And so that's something to consider, those people that are doing itemizing of their taxes. The second misconception we run into is people that say, well, I don't have clients who are charitable or who want to give their assets away. And so the answer to that might be, which of your clients might benefit by repositioning some of their current assets to create income tax deductions, capital gain reductions, estate tax reductions, and income for themselves or for their heirs. Because many of the cases that we do are initiated because of some looming tax issues involving some of their current assets. So it's not just giving assets away, but repositioning those assets to meet tax, income, and philanthropic goals for your clients. And then the last thing that people might say is, well, I don't have time to help all my clients do charitable planning. I need to get paid. And so our model includes a compensation of 7% for you. And so we fit that into our model so that you can be compensated for the work that you're doing. And so those are some of the things we've tried to overcome in doing this type of planning to show you folks. So what is a legacy plan? This is just the best. I mean, the slide there is the best example. A legacy plan is a simple transfer of an asset to Legacy Tree Foundation. Our four main assets are securities, annuities, real estate, and cash. In exchange, your client gets an immediate or deferred tax favored income for life or a set number of years. And then because we're a 501c3, there is an income tax deduction, capital gain reduction where applicable, and estate tax reduction. So it's really as simple as that. In a moment, I'll go over some thoughts regarding some of these assets so we could see if it could be beneficial to use some of these assets to help your clientele in their situation. Just covering some of the basics here again initially, but I want to review some of the general uses for this kind of planning. First of all, these are charitable plans. In the organization, we're a charity, so money is always going to help charitable causes. And an interesting point is that statistics show that 98% of high net worth households and 85% of all households actually make annual charitable contributions. So that's important that a lot of your clients are already charitable. But here's the thing, most people think of charitable planning as simply writing out a check to their favorite charity and getting an income tax deduction. So I want to make sure that we all understand that there's another level in the IRS code where people can make a partial charitable deduction. And yes, they get an income tax deduction for that, but they also get income in return. So after the fact that we're helping charitable causes, the other two layers of this is that we're creating income and we're creating tax benefits. So let's talk about that first. Regarding the tax benefits, a couple of the main points, just 3 points I want to make, is they can reduce their current taxes. So it's really as simple as that. If you have clients who itemize their taxes, they could benefit from the tax deduction. If they transfer a capital asset, part of the capital gain is eliminated in addition to the tax deduction. And always either all or part of the estate tax asset is always, or part of it is removed from their estate for taxable reasons there. So the point I like to make here is everybody likes to save money on taxes. So it's not just the high net worth clients. Lower net worth clients like to save money on taxes just as much. So I think you probably agree with me that someone that's paying $5,000 in taxes wants to save just as much as somebody paying $50,000 in taxes. Now, the second point is a lot of people have applied the tax deduction in such a way that it'll minimize taxes from Roth conversions that they may have done. Others may be able to reduce taxes on required minimum distributions, especially if they're RMDs that they don't necessarily want or need right now. So conversations can be had with your clients regarding people wanting to be able to make qualified distributions tax-free also. And the way that happens is someone can create a tax deduction through our legacy plan, and then they have a new tax deduction there. They can pull money out of a qualified account, and then they can offset the taxable event by taking money out of that qualified account by the tax deduction they just created with the legacy plan. So they're actually getting qualified money out of those accounts tax-free. And so that's a real nice conversation starter also. The deduction can also move somebody's reportable income to a lower tax bracket. And obviously this will just simply remove taxes, but for higher net worth clients, it could move them out of some of the high brackets where there are more tax penalties if they're at a certain bracket level. And then a tax deduction moves people to a lower bracket, not only reduces their income tax bill, but also could reduce their capital gain taxes if they want to liquidate or maybe did liquidate a capital asset that year. We see a lot of cases like that. The point is, every advisor has clients who think they pay too much in taxes. And so that's a good starting point for these types of conversations. The other component then is the income side. This is the type of plan that allows people to get income in return. So for most of the cases we do, over time, more income actually gets paid back than was originally put in addition to the tax benefits. So that makes it an economically sound transaction also. But in terms of the income, it could begin immediately, could be deferred, could be life, could be for a term of years, could be for themselves, for your client, or it could be set up as what we call a structured inheritance for their heirs, so they can leave a nice legacy for their kids. And then one of the great tools is to use the income or a portion of it also to fund life insurance premiums to replace the asset value. We see a lot of that. And that potentially gets the most to the kids in the most tax efficient manner, because sometimes they can fund a life insurance plan that's going to give them more than the original value of that asset, and potentially tax free to the kids. So that makes for a good scenario. So just to make sure we have a proper understanding here to separate the types of transactions that we're talking about today, I want to show you this slide, because here's what everybody's familiar with in terms of charitable planning. The client or the donor, you call it a client, we call them a donor, but they transfer, let's say $100,000 to the charity, and they get a charitable income tax deduction. That's pretty easy. Everybody's familiar with that. We all know how that works. Well, that's not what we want to talk about today. Today, what we want to talk about, we're going to show you how our legacy plan works. And ours is what's called a split interest charitable transaction. And again, the client transfers $100,000 to the charity, but in this case, it's going to be split between the income and the tax deduction. So maybe they get a $40,000 tax deduction, but then also they're going to get income on the rest of it that's going to be paid over a term of years with principal and interest. And so, as I mentioned earlier, most of the cases they get paid back more than they originally put in. So they get their entire $100,000 back over time, plus they've got their $40,000 deduction that they can use today. So that's what makes these exciting. Obviously, I've used the 40 and the 60 there just as examples. These numbers could seesaw higher or lower each, depending on if the client wants more income or if they want more tax deduction. But that's just kind of the basics of what happens with these types of cases. Here's the flow of how a transaction would actually happen. Well, no, let me stop here and do this slide first, because basically we have two types of programs. They're both called a split interest program, but one is a term certain and one is a lifetime income. So these basically work the same way. It's just how the income gets paid out. So on the left side, we have what we call a charitable bargain installment sale. That's the official IRS, and you can see the code there. That's how it fits into the code. And that's one that pays income for a specific term of years. It could start immediate or it could be deferred. And then on the right, this is the lifetime income, and this is the one that pays income to your client for the life of one or two individuals. This one's known in the IRS code as a charitable gift annuity, or CGA. I'm sure some of you have heard of those before. You can see the codes there. And then this one pays for income for the life of one or two individuals. So the tax deduction and so forth is pretty similar on these. It's just how the income gets paid on them. One of the other things that I like to point out is, because we're not an insurance company, as I mentioned, we're a charitable organization, as clients don't have to write out a check to fund their legacy plans. The income can be funded with these assets other than cash, and that they just basically change ownership to the charity, to us, and then we send them a contract that includes the tax and the income benefits. But as the bottom point there says, because we're a charity, that's why the tax benefits are included in this type of planning. Also, just to make sure we're clear, is these are not a charitable trust. Some of you are familiar with charitable remainder trust and those types of things. These are all kind of in the same family, but these are a lot simpler. There's no setting up of the trust, no fees, no ongoing taxes that have to be dealt with within the trust. These are just simply a transaction where the client exchanges their asset for the contract from the charity. And then here's the slide I mentioned earlier of how it works, what an actually flow chart looks like for each and every case. So assuming we've done all the legwork, the case design, the case study, and we've determined that it's a suitable and beneficial situation for your client, the client will transfer their asset to the charity. That's the first thing that happens. And then the client receives a contract in return from the charity. And so that contract is going to include, it's going to show what the income tax deduction is, the capital gain reduction, if that's in play there, if they've transferred a capital asset, the estate reduction, and then it's going to talk about the terms of the income, whether it's immediate, deferred, term certain, or lifetime. And that's pretty much how it works. It's just that simple. Now, because we are promising an income with specific terms, the funds have to be reserved. I mean, everybody wants peace of mind. You do, your client does, we do. And so we're going to put money aside for the value of that future income stream. In our case, instead of investing those reserves into something potentially volatile, we just simply invest in an annuity contract from a highly rated and familiar insurance company. And then when the time comes for the income to begin, we usually have the payments go directly from the insurance company to the client. And that tends to increase the comfort level, I guess. I was a little surprised with that, but a lot of the clients actually like the fact that the income then comes from, one of the highly rated carriers that they've probably even heard of. And then, of course, the reason any of these benefits are available is because it's a charitable plan. And so we allow the client to recommend a charity to benefit from their transaction. So obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but usually your client's going to have charities involved. Once they hear how this works, they're going to have charities that they would like to see benefit from their transaction. And so we let them make recommendations to charities they would like to see benefit. So that's how she works in the basics here. Let's just touch on a couple of things here about what to look for with the different types of assets. And I'm going to just show you some highlights on each of these just to kind of give you an idea, because I mentioned that there were 4 types of assets that we use to fund these plans. So let's look at a couple of quick points just regarding some of these assets. Cash, they're the easiest, and there's things that we want to look for the specific types of cash. I say use cash first because that's the asset that we see most often transferred to us. And those are just some things that we want to look for, clients that think they're paying too much in taxes. I mentioned that. Clients have low performing assets. We call it lazy money, funds and CDs, money markets, that kind of stuff. They're not growing a whole lot. And then what is growing is taxable. So these can be a perfect asset to create a tax deduction. One thing that we see a lot is clients have had a windfall if they've sold something. So think of the clients maybe who sold some property or business, or just had some great years and they want to just create a tax deduction to offset their taxes. That can be great as well. I mentioned to offset RMDs. Maybe they'd like to help charity but still get income back. That would be the next one there. Some like to, the second to the bottom there, provide a structured inheritance to their heirs. A lot of times mom and dad just don't want their kids to inherit a big lump sum when they pass away. So mom and dad can transfer some cash. They can create a tax deduction for themselves, and then they can set up a legacy plan income that can go to the kids when they pass away, when mom and dad pass away, of course, not the kids. High net worth people that have exhausted all their other retirement funding. Maybe they've filled up the amount that they can do based on their income to a 401k or a 403b, those kind of things. Then they can do a plan with us and put some cash there, get a tax deduction now, and then have tax preferred income later in life when they retire, or even have it go to the kids there as well. So those are pretty simple. Securities are a popular one also. Excuse me, clients who want to reduce exposure to the market. And these are just simply people that want to get off the market roller coaster. You probably have a lot of seniors in that category. A lot of folks are happy where they are with their growth and their riskier type of assets. And they'd like to get out, but they don't because of the capital gain taxes. So this is an excellent strategy to get out and reduce or eliminate some of the capital gain taxes. And then in some cases, on the bottom point, there's people might like to use the income then to fund life insurance so that the kids get the life insurance benefit as opposed to inheriting some stocks or securities. Because who knows what's going to happen with the step up, in the next few years too on the securities. So that could be a great solution as well to get out of the market while the market's still well, and then fund life insurance to go to the kids. Real estate's an awesome asset to use. We don't see a lot of transactions with real estate, but we should, because especially right now, I mean, the real estate market's gone crazy in the last year or so. I know in here, stuff's gone up. It's almost doubled in price, it seems like, in the last year here. but there's, real estate values are skyrocketing. So if you have clients, especially senior clients, with investment or rental property, they want to get out, but they don't because of the capital gain issues with that. Some would like to get out and just create the income to purchase life insurance. Again, in that case, some have assets that they would like to, that they need more income, but they have assets. And so this would be a way for them to get out and create more income for themselves without having to get burnt so bad on the capital gains. So that's a great transaction to talk about. And I'm kind of just going through these quickly, not to take up a lot of your time, but just to kind of hit on some highlights there so you can see what happens with these. But the last one I want to touch on, and this is also one of our most popular asset types, is annuities get transferred a lot. And I'll actually give you a quick case study on that one. But the thing we want to look for, the main thing is just clients who pass their annuities on to their heirs. And the point being there that annuities aren't necessarily the best asset to be used to transfer wealth. They're great as we go along, and they've been a great investment for folks because they put money away. They've been able to get tax deferred growth. But the issue is that it's something like 95% of the folks, I think it's actually higher than that, don't annuitize their annuities. They end up passing them to the kids. A lot of folks take withdrawals out of them, but the kids end up inheriting these annuities, and then they have to pay taxes on them. So they inherit the annuity, but they inherit the growth, which is taxable to them. So in our case, when somebody transfers an annuity to us, they're going to get a 1099 from the insurance company, but then the tax deduction they create is going to offset those gains within there. So it potentially leaves a more tax advantaged inheritance for those kids. And then the other nice thing about it's, even though mom and dad transferred their annuity to us, they didn't give it to us. So they're going to get income that could be to themselves, or in a lot of cases, it goes to the kids after mom and dad passes away. So it's works in a way, it works like a trust, but you're not setting up a trust. It just makes it very helpful for the folks to be able to do a simple transaction like that to get benefits to the kids. So let's just talk about an example there regarding annuity transfers. And so this one is Herb and Ruth. And they wanted the growth potential, kind of the reason you write annuities. They wanted growth potential tax deferral, so they purchased a fixed annuity for $100,000. Worth 120, got to survive for. Point being, they've got a $20,000 gain in this annuity. They're concerned about they pay too much in income taxes. And if their children inherit this annuity, they'll have to pay taxes on it maybe twice. They'll pay income tax, and they may even have to pay state taxes potentially, and it might move to a higher tax bracket. This isn't a huge gain, but there are some annuities that have a large gain in them. So here's what they did. They transferred their $120,000 annuity to Legacy Tree Foundation in exchange for the LegacyPlan contract. So you'll see this looks just like the flow chart we did earlier, except it's got real numbers in there. So we issue the contract at the $120,000, even though we just get the surrender value that gets absorbed into the contract. The IRS recognizes the accumulated value of this. So even though we're actually getting the surrender value, the tax deduction can be based on the accumulated value. Makes for a higher tax deduction. So a number of factors go into determining what the contract's going to be, the term of the payments, if they want it deferred, what the surrender value is, what the income is versus the charitable amount, the cost of reinsurance for us, etc. But the contract determines the benefit that they're going to get in return. So here's what that looks like. So first of all, they create a $48,000 tax deduction. If they're in a 24% bracket, that's going to put $11,565 right back in their pocket. So what we were able to do here is to use this tax deduction to offset that $20,000 of tax deferred growth and allow them to settle up with Uncle Sam now. Excuse me, settle up with Uncle Sam now, so the kids won't inherit an annuity with a lump sum tax attached to it. And then if the deduction is large enough, it can also reduce their current liability, tax liability. And that's because they only had to offset $20,000 from the annuity gains. Well, they've still got $28,186 that they can reduce their tax bill with also. So that gives them a nice benefit. Two benefits: they're offsetting the taxes in the annuity, but they're also going to reduce what their tax bill would have been. Of course, then they're getting income. So in this case, this is a 5-year deferred. At that point, they're going to get $75,02 a year for 20 years. So as I mentioned earlier, for most of the cases we do, the parents don't plan on taking any income, but they can still access the money if they need to, or they can name their children as beneficiaries. And again, this is nice because a lot of parents would rather set up that structured inheritance for their kids, maybe for this portion of their estate, rather than having them receive, a lump sum of it. And then, as always, because we're promising them income for several years, we're going to reserve the funds. So we're going to simply invest in an annuity contract from a highly rated and familiar insurance carrier, just like we do always. So the income in this case ends up being $150,000 in addition to those tax benefits. And so again, this is an important concept to consider. And it works very similar in all the cases, just a little nuances. And if there's capital assets, there's capital gain reduction as well. But with annuities, there's 3 points I like to make with this. One is that some of your clients will never access this annuity. They have the annuity, but they're never going to use it. And because they would like to avoid passing a taxable event onto their children. So that's big. And they could benefit from a tax deduction this year. So that's a key thing also for us. And as I mentioned, all of the assets are going to look similar if we did a flow chart. Obviously the numbers would change. The numbers would change if we change the deferred, if they wanted immediate or deferred income or further deferred, or if they wanted a longer payout on there. That'll change how the income works there. So that gives us a pretty good idea, hopefully, of how our program works. Let's cover a couple of the other details. And one is what's in it for you. And I know many advisors, as I mentioned at the beginning, avoid this type of planning because they need to be compensated. And we're set up to provide compensation to you as the advisor. It's just simply a referral fee that we've built into our model. A lot of organizations use fundraisers, golf outings, banquets. You've probably all been to some of those things. But in our case, we just have that compensation in there for you. You've done the work, help clients save on taxes, perhaps increase their income, help get more money to support charitable work that never would have gotten there had you not helped your client do this. So you should be compensated. Also, our contracts can be issued at any age, and we can compensate you the same amount for every age. So you all know how that works based on different products that you sell. Some of the times as the clients get older, the compensation gets reduced. It doesn't for us. The reserve method is a nice peace of mind for you and the client because again, everything that we do is insured, all the income streams. And this is important because, as I said, rather than for us to self-insure, invest the reserves in volatile and certain investments, we just invest in insurance contracts. So based on the claims paying ability of those insurance contracts, that's where our peace of mind comes from. Every contract we've ever done we call it reinsured, but it's actually just insured. And we just feel that that's the best way to offer peace of mind to you, to your clientele, and of course to ourselves. And as I said, we've reinsured every single case we've ever done. The other thing that's important is that a lot of times these programs are introduced and discussed with the client because of the tax and income benefits. And so when the client understands then that the reason the benefits are available is because it is a charitable planning program, then they want to know about the charitable component. And so to provide more flexibility and control when you're making a presentation to your clients, we allow them to participate in the charitable component. So if your client would like to help their local church or a homeless shelter, or maybe a food bank, college, Wounded Warrior, St. Jude, something like that, then they can recommend their favorite organizations to benefit from their transaction. And this provides, again, the flexibility and control for the clients. As far as who we are, as I mentioned, we're a 501c3 charity. And we began in 1999, so we have 23 years of existence. Obviously, we have to do charitable things in order to be and to remain tax exempt. The IRS designed the code to encourage charitable work. That's why they gave that designation in their tax exempt status. I think most of us would agree that charities can help people more efficiently than the government can. And so that's why they offer tax exempt status. So we're a Christian faith-based charity. Our mission is provide spiritual, physical, and humanitarian aid to those in need. That's what our mission is. But again, it's very important that we understand that your client can recommend charities a little closer to their heart to benefit from their transaction. And so we just did a case, actually we just closed it this week where well, actually it was an advisor who wrote one on himself for the tax benefits that was at the very last day of the year last year for the 2020 tax year, or 2021 tax year, sorry. And then he recommended 10 charities to benefit from his transaction. And so yesterday, actually, we sent out 10 checks to the charities that he was interested in. Actually, it was the day before, but yeah, so that's where we want to help. A couple of final points. I like this slide because when we think about who are the primary beneficiaries of people's estates, we call it involuntary philanthropy, where the government is the beneficiary. It's, it's an uninvited beneficiary, but Right now, their money goes to the IRS first, family second, charities third. And what we want to do is change this sequence there and go with their intended ones, which would be the family first, maybe charity second, then the IRS. And so what we're trying to do is put them more in this order so that we can reduce what's going to the IRS. One little motivating slide here, I'll just throw in here. I sometimes hesitate because I don't like to make this like you're going to be out, peddling these types of programs, because you can't. These aren't the types of programs that work for that. They work well for clients that you have relationships with long-term. And obviously they have to be suitable and beneficial for your clients, but we do have a compensation program in there. And so I just thought I'd throw in a couple of numbers there. With the combinations, our average case size is 166,000. Again, that goes back to what John mentioned at the beginning, is these aren't necessarily for just the high net worth, very high net worth folks with an average case size of 166. You can see that, that number makes it kind of for your average clients. But a transaction at that compensation there, that number provides two different numbers there for if you did one case a year and if you did 3 cases a year. So this is something that would be, beneficial to you. Number one, if it's beneficial to your client. So I like to just show that to inspire us just a little bit, that it can be a piece of your business there, which can be lucrative for you and then be very beneficial for your clientele. So a couple of quick points in summary here. I'm pretty sure we all have clients who would want to reduce their tax bill. There's so many reasons, and many of the assets that we just went over, but charitable programs are often the suitable and most beneficial way for clients to exit some of these assets and create the tax and income benefits for themselves. And with these types of split interest charitable plans, your clients get the tax advantages, but they also get the income. That's what I like to make sure we understand there. So we're not coming back and saying, well, I don't have any clients who want to give their assets away. So, whether your clients are at a time in their lives where fixed income is important to them and or they want their heirs to receive fixed income instead of a lump sum, this can be a nice tool, because a lot of parents would rather provide a legacy to their heirs instead of a lottery ticket through what I mentioned earlier we call our structured inheritance that the legacy plan provides. So this is just simply a way to keep the IRS from being a major beneficiary of part of your client's nest egg, because we feel that resolving the issue of passing taxes to the children and providing additional tax savings and income, it's always a popular discussion with your clientele and could be certainly a new reason to talk with them or communicate with them. So this the last point I like to make is, if you're looking for a way to be able to increase your production without having to add new clients, this would be something you want to consider. How does that happen, and why does that happen? Because most of the cases that we do are done with your current clients using their current existing assets. And a lot of times these are assets that are simply left on the table because you don't know necessarily what else to do with them. Client that's 79 years old and they've got an annuity, it's going to be pretty tough to get that moved to another organization, because a lot of times the insurance companies are going to see that as unsuitable. Even though it might not be unsuitable, they just won't let you do it. But this is a way for them to maybe exit out of that particular situation and get the benefits from that. And that's a reason why you're able to increase your production without having to add new clients. So it avoids having to come up with a lead system, because you can actually go back to your book of clients and review some of the things that they have and see if this might be beneficial, because there really aren't that many options where you can get this much tax advantage and income all while helping those in need. And then you can see at the bottom of the screen there, obviously you can speak with folks with John over there at VisionAdvisors. They got the website and the number there. And then if they're going to call us, you can see our guy, John Frazier's there. He's representing us for VisionAdvisors. And so if you want to communicate with him, there's our number with his extension on the bottom of that as well. So John, Terry, thank you so much for having us on. Apologize for having a little raspy voice here, but sounds like we got through it. I hope we find some things there that are beneficial for your group as well as your organization. And we'd love to start working with you guys.
Absolutely. Jim, thank you. Very informative. I know we've got several questions coming in. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, so we've got that for folks that want to catch it later.